First time I got relegated, it was on my birthday, which is good.
It's pretty devastating, to be honest.
You can't quite comprehend it.
I just felt a bit lost, if I'm honest.
We beat West Ham 3-0 and still went down. That's my ball.
The cost of a team being relegated into the Championship can be pretty significant. Without obviously knowing a lot of what player contracts actually say, immediately there is the loss of that £90 million, at least as a minimum, for the central distribution.
Going down from the Premier League is even bigger than what it used to be. Before it was like, we're not Match of the Day anymore. Now it's just there's so much money that you're missing out on.
If you're playing in the Premier League, for BT Sport, for Sky Sports, it's absolutely huge. So the financial element for Saints to go down, we will have to sell our players.
When we've got so many big clubs come into play in a city like ours, such a small city, you know, it's a huge thing.
Obviously there's so much money involved in the Premier League and we're not going to be receiving that anymore. You get your parachute payments when you first go down, but like I've said before, the owners have got a lot of money behind them, so I don't think we'll be too affected financially. I think we've got a lot of money behind the club if we need it.
The ideal position, if you are taking a worst case scenario as a chief executive of a Premier League club, is to ensure firstly that you have relegation reduction clauses. The second thing, I guess, is you want talented players that Premier League clubs may actually want to purchase, and that you're in a solid position that generally they're on longer term contracts.
The second that final whistle goes, you're relegated. You know there's a handful of players that are already looking now actually for the next club. They're already thinking, well, I need to leave Stoke, I need to get to this place, this place.
For me, the real effect is going to be the players that we're going to lose. Jack Butland, one of England's young, best up-and-coming goalkeepers, will certainly be gone. Shaqiri was such a cooper when we signed him. He'll also be gone.
Fabianski, Fede, Mawson, Andre, probably lose Wilfred Boney, Tammy Abraham's going to go back.
All these egos will be pushed to one side. The Championship really brings the core heart of the club out.
Where teams can sometimes go wrong is that their business case and their business plan is dependent on 8th position in the Premier League or 6th position in the Premier League. And therefore what can happen is they're expecting that money and that revenue to come in.
I think the idea was totally unthinkable 2 years ago. In the position that we were, challenging for Europa League football in Europa League football last season, to get to where we are this season, we've made some monumental errors, and yeah, it's a sad situation because we've been a model football club.
I find it amazing we've been there for a decade because it's gone like that. And then it feels like we're just reverting back to what I knew originally. And it's pretty heartbreaking.
We've tried to cut corners, we've tried to save money, and you just can't do that in this league. And it's going to be no one else's fault but the owners and the board.
Sometimes what the clubs have to do is take out loans against transfer fees, against central payments. And that effectively means that they receive the monies now for future payments due. And that problem means is that the money that you think you have coming in for a future transfer fee, you don't. And that leads to a domino effect. Can't finance debt, can't pay the players because they're on very large wages, don't have the squad to be able to sell particularly attractive players, and that spiral continues.
We don't want to do something like Sunderland have just done and go straight back down again, but I feel like we've got the owner and board with, you know, the right state of mind and right intentions for the club to come back up.
Honestly, my expectation is that we stay in the Championship next season.
I think a good example that a team at least being able to bounce back pretty quickly is Newcastle. When they were relegated, they sold two of their biggest stars, I guess, in Sissoko and Wijnaldum for over £20 million each. Those transfer fees probably went a long way to be able to be reinvested in the squad and for them to go back up at the first attempt.
Anyone who goes, oh, maybe it's best if you go down to go back up, they're talking nonsense. It's not that easy.
More than likely going to win more often than not. Hopefully play some more attacking football, give the youngsters more of a chance. So this could be the making of us.
It's always difficult to say relegation can help a team. From a financial perspective, revenues, then no. Relegation will always be less attractive because the club will receive less revenue.
Before we even were in this situation, when we're constantly finishing 9th every year with no cup run to even excite us, I said I'd happily go down and have a season of coming back up and celebrating something if it meant that, you know, we could actually celebrate something. So for me, that's why it's not the worst thing in the world.
You know, we've been in the Premier League for 8 years. we've kind of stagnated, just trying to reach 40 points every season.
The most I've loved my football team was when we were in Division 2. We had players who were fans of the club, all players who loved QPR, and then we achieved something. That's the team I've loved the most. That's when I've been so proud to be a QPR fan.
Actually, honestly, some of the best years of sport in Swansea was in the Championship. I really loved those years.
Then we get to go on to all these clubs and away days that we've not been on for a long, long time. So for me, it's new, it's exciting. Hopefully that's the way it goes.
If we're playing in a lower league, it's still my club. It's still my Saturday watching my club. So being relegated in the Premiership, I'm not going to lose that drive and passion I've got for Stoke City. That will remain.